Hello everyone, I'm George Staten. Welcome to another episode of Interview with a Famous Person. We've all heard about the suffrage, about the movements. Now that the World War has begun, women have also begun to involve themselves very much in the war. So, on the topic of women, today we'd like to interview possibly the most important and inspirational suffragette leader Britain has ever had. We are honoured today to introduce Emmeline Pankhurst. Hello Emmeline, how are you doing? Hello George, I'm doing great, and it's an absolute honour to be here today. Well, that's great. Let's get started. If I may ask, what is a suffragette? Meaning, what do you do and what do you and your followers stand for? Well, a suffragette is someone who stands up for women's rights and for the right to vote. That would be the literal meaning of the suffragettes. But asking me what we really stand for takes a lot more than just saying we stand for the right to vote. It's not just about voting, it's about equality and having the ability to take part in your government and to take part in what is decided in the nation you live in. We are not just meant to be housewives and to take care of men and to bear children. We're not just meant to be in the kitchen and belong to somebody. We are individuals, whether educated or not. We all deserve the same rights, and men should not have the upper hand, but instead, for all of us to live hand in hand. And that's pretty much what we stand for. Well, that's quite a statement. I see you feel very strongly about your movement, but I do have to ask, what made you start the suffragette movement and believe this strongly about the equality between men and women and how it should be more prevalent in British society? I guess it sort of began with my husband Richard Pankhurst. He was a lawyer and a supporter of the women's suffrage. He was actually the author of the American Women Property Acts of 1870 and 1882, which gave women the right to keep property and money that was rightfully theirs before and after marriage. There was a huge controversy against it because, of course, a man always wants the upper hand and don't want women to have any rights whatsoever. He and I saw that women are not lower than men, that we all work, and many times women have the same jobs as men, but they just don't get paid the same amounts. So in 1889, I helped found the Women's Franchise League, which fought for the right of married women so they could be allowed to vote. But I guess later on, when I saw it wasn't working, that being peaceful and trying to do things diplomatically didn't work, my daughters, Christabel and Sylvia, and we founded the Women's Social and Political Union, which fought for all women to be allowed to vote, no matter how rich, poor, and no matter how or what we had to resort to get our rights. You mentioned that you created the Women's Social and Political Union, which fought for women to have the ability to vote. But that's what Millicent Fawcett was also fighting for in 1897 when she created the National Society for Women's Suffrage. Why did you create another organization for the exact same cause? Oh, Millicent, what a great woman. She had all the right ideas, of course. That women should have the right to vote, and that we should do everything peacefully, intelligently, and without violence. She and his suffragettes had many peaceful protests, and it should have worked. It would have worked if it hadn't been for men being the way they are. Men are so selfish. They have these rights that we don't have, and they get paid more than we do, and they think that we are stupid little girls. The way they dealt with things wasn't at all peaceful. They were rude and rough and violent. So we had to get violent, just as they did. We had to fight fire with fire. So that's why the Women's Social and Political Union was founded in 1903. Because I knew if we wanted results, if we really needed this right, we had to take action. Exactly what ways did you get violent? Was there only violence, or were there also peaceful suffragettes in the Union? How was it that all this violence started? And how was it supposed to help you get the right to vote? I mean, how was it supposed to get the right to vote? Well, in case you didn't hear the news, we began destroying public property. There was arson. There were bombings. People committed suicide. Civil disobedience. Of course, the beginning of all this, we actually started off slowly and peacefully, asserted, but mostly non-violent. It was until 1905 when my daughter, Christabel and Annie Kenny, interrupted a very important political meeting in Manchester, and when they asked the politicians if they thought that women should have the right to vote, they stood absolutely silent. Can you believe it? Those men didn't even answer them. These girls, these independent women, started to demand an answer from them. And instead of supporting them, they were thrown out of the meeting and arrested for interrupting a meeting full of sexist men. They did what they had to do. They refused to pay the fine and instead went to prison to show everybody that the justice system was so unfair, so undermining of women. We refused to let them oppress us. The Church of England was against what we wanted, so we burned so many of those churches down. We broke all the windows on Oxford Street. We changed ourselves to Buckingham Palace because the royal family was against us having the right to vote. Chained ourselves. We went on our boats. We went up the Thames River and shouted at the Parliament. We attacked politicians as they went to work. And to show them just how much we were capable of, we would firebomb their homes and vandalize their golf courses. On June 5th, 1913, Emily Wilding Davison, one of our finest suffragettes, threw herself in front of the king's horse, fellow suffragettes sacrificing her life for the cause. And all this violence, these attacks, were to get the people of Britain to understand how serious we were about this, how long and how far we would go to get the right to vote. Oh dear, that much? Didn't the government involve themselves? I mean, how could they let this go on for so long? Do not think for 1 second that they did not involve themselves. We were arrested so many times. When suffragettes went to prison, they would go on hunger strikes for days and days. They began to force-feed us, stick a tube down our throats and force food into our bodies so we wouldn't die. It was horrible and painful and barbaric. I was force-fed so many times. Every time it hurt more and more. And the public, they reacted. They understood that these jails were treating us like lunatics, not like the strong, independent, and educated women we were. But it came to a point where the government got very involved. And they passed an act called the Cat and Mouse Act. would let us hunger strike and get weak. Then they'd release us. So many women would be too weak to be involved in any of the movement anymore. And then the women that got strong again, the women that recovered, they would just rearrest them. It was horrible. I guess it's the only way they knew to counteract our movement. Can you believe it? All of this, so much pain we had to endure just to get the right to vote.
Well, skipping on to the present, why, if you had so many suffragettes fighting for the right to vote, did you suddenly stop them and get them to support the very country, the very men that are denying you your rights now that the world of war is beginning?
George, our country is in trouble. We are in danger as a nation. We, the women, are just as great as men, just as capable. And if men are going to the frontier to fight, women are going to have to step up and fill in for jobs and work where men will be absent. Germany is a threat, a huge, huge threat. And if we do not help our country to defeat them, we are going nowhere but down. And then where will our rights be if we have no country to have them in? I believe 100% that by pausing our movements just for a bit in order to protect our people will see how capable we are and react and finally give us the right to vote in our parliament.
It seems we are running out of time. I'm awfully sorry, but before we go, one more question. Why are you doing this? I'm not asking why the movement is doing what they're doing. But you, what do you think about all of this?
I believed in peaceful protests before, and I thought that by following the law, by doing things the diplomatic way, we women would get what we wanted. The time came when that didn't work. So I knew that violence was the only answer. It's not just about voting. We're fighting for our rights. This is a sex war. Society condemns, ridicules, and mistreats women. We are so many times mistreated at the hands of men, many times sexually. And we, the suffragettes, I, Emmeline Pankhurst, yearn to free myself of my own culturally imposed sexual identity if it means that women are less human than men. I am rebelling against historical male tyranny and how they treat us like objects, just there for their pleasure and their comfort. Now this goes out to women. Don't let them treat us like objects. We are individuals. We deserve the right to vote. We deserve all the rights that men have. We are as capable as men. And if we don't fight for this, if we do not demonstrate this as the truth, then it never will be. And we will always deign to be equal to men. Is that what you want? No? Then stand up and fight for it.
Thank you so much, Emmeline, for those powerful, inspirational words. I do really hope to have you on our show again someday.
I hope so too. Thank you for having me.
Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for listening to tonight's episode of Interview with a Famous Person.